Limitless Lindy is truly a legend in the carnivore community, not just for her weight loss story because she did lose 500 pounds after going carnivore, but also for her tenacity to stick with this lifestyle and her courage to share her journey. She's now been carnivore for about 2 years, and we will go through her full panel blood work with board certified family physician Dr. Tony Hampton. If you're interested in part 1 of this video where I share my high fat carnivore diet blood work results, make sure to check out that video linked down below in the description box.
Well, thank you, Bella, for the opportunity, and the rest of the team. It's so important that people understand labs. So the metabolic health doc is here to at least share my perspective. I'm a family doctor in Chicago with training in obesity and nutrition, and I try to teach the value of using nutrition to heal. So I'm really excited to be here. And a big part of healing is to know where you stand, and the labs provide foundational information that we all should know.
Lindy, introduce yourself.
Yeah, Lindy here from Melbourne, Australia, 53 years old. I've been carnivore 2.5 years, and I was plus or minus 800 pounds down to 260 pounds in that short time, 2.5 years. So reversed my type 2 diabetes, and lymphedema, lipedema improved. No longer have weekly migraines, and mobility. I just went to Austin, Texas. I've got my life back driving again. So yeah, pretty much 1 foot in the grave, and now I'm living a fantastic life. So thanks to Carnivore and SPG gang.
Okay, this is Limitless Lindy's blood work collected March 15th this year, 2024.
The doctor just went through them all and just rattled off a few numbers and just said good, good, bad, and that was it. Any information would be great.
I think the units of measure may be different, but when you look at those labs that are there, starting with the cholesterol, the total cholesterol is an interesting lab because it includes the HDL, LDL, and something called the VLDL, which is very low density lipoprotein. So it doesn't make sense if you think about that. If it includes the good and the so-called bad, which is the LDL, then the total cholesterol has no value, because it's not telling you, do I have a lot of the good or a lot of the bad? So the first thing I see is when I see a total cholesterol, I usually ignore it for the most part. The second thing are the triglycerides that are listed here, and those are the fats that are floating around in your blood. It may be the most important thing on here because we don't want those fats to float around. One of the things good about carnivore is that, or keto, when you eat that dietary pattern, you tend to burn fat as your primary fuel. And guess what? Triglycerides are fat. So one of the ways I know someone's doing keto or carnivore is I'll see their triglycerides go down. The good cholesterol, the high density lipoprotein, which is the cholesterol particle, it's like a carrier that brings the cholesterol away from your arteries back into your, your liver. And what's cool about that is I always use the example of like tuck pointing your house. So when I drop the mortar from the tuck point onto I don't want it to hit the grass, so the HDL takes it away so it doesn't get on the grass. It's also taken away from your arteries, obviously, in this case. The LDL, the low density lipoprotein, that's the cholesterol that is the mortar. So you need LDL cholesterol to tuck point your house or your arteries to keep your house stable. But if you have an inflamed house, then what's going to happen is that you're going to take a brick house and stucco that house. And now the equivalent of that is clogging your arteries. So the goal is to have just the right balance of mortar, LDL, and the stuff that's bringing the mortar away, HDL, to keep your house looking like a brick house. Now, so the LDL particle is actually trying to protect your house or your arteries by helping to fill all the crevices and things like that. So LDL is not a bad cholesterol. It's actually a good cholesterol. By the way, you may not have done this test, but what I tell patients who are concerned about their LDL cholesterol, I say, since you think it's a bad cholesterol, let's get the particle sizes, and then you'll look for the large and small. The small are the ones that gets into the crevices that causes trouble in your arteries, and the large bounce off the arteries. So if you're ever concerned because you're on keto or carnivore about the LDL, just get particle sizes. And if you have more large and less small, you're probably okay. And at the end of the day, that that second thing, cholesterol divided by HDL, it's the ratios that matter. In your case, these labs all look pretty good. They're all within range. You want the cholesterol to HDL ratio to be in a lower number. And you can also take the triglycerides and divide it by the HDL. In your case, the ratio is probably less than 1. You want it to be less than 2. So when I look at these numbers that were done more recently, they are very favorable and they suggest that you're in pretty good shape. It sounds like carnivore is not causing any harm.
Before we continue with the video, I just wanted to share that Dr. Tony Hampton is a board-certified family physician, an ex-vegan turned carnivore himself, and also a specialist in diabetes. You all can get a chance to ask your personal carnivore and healing questions to Dr. Tony Hampton when you join our next 30-day carnivore challenge. Our monthly guest lineup is always exceptional. We have Dr. Hampton himself, Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Robert Kiltz, Coach Rebecca Heichman, and the entire team of SBG coaches that you can learn from throughout the challenge. For more details and to directly sign up, just go to the URL shown on the screen, sbgmeetup.com, and I've also linked a clickable link down below in the description box.
So we have talked about, am I burning fat? I'm in ketosis, is fat burning happening? And I love what you said about if you have a low triglyceride, which Lindy's triglycerides are going down over time. And so that's an indicator that her blood is being cleaned up and that is getting metabolized. Is that kind of what you're saying on that?
That's actually correct. It's the biggest. When I was a vegetarian, I would share videos about how saturated fat was going to clog the arteries. But then when you look at the studies, it showed that people on low carb actually had less saturated fat floating around, even though they just ate a burger, which has saturated fat. It didn't make sense. So yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. When you eat this way, you literally are using the saturated fat as fuel. And when you eat a high carb diet, your body is very smart. If you give it quick fuel, like carbs, that's like in the refrigerator, right? You're going to always go to the refrigerator before you go to the freezer. Now, the fat lives in the freezer. So why would I bother thawing out some steak if there's something in the refrigerator? So the goal is, don't feed your body the carbs because your carbs will then let the fat float around in your arteries. But if you use it as fuel, you'll keep eating it up and it won't get stuck to anything. So it's really important that people understand that. It's hard to understand how eating something with saturated fat is not going to clog your arteries, but what you're doing is you're training your body to burn that as your primary fuel. And what's cool about that is you also have fat on your belly. So when you're not eating, your body will say, I don't need to go and get, the rice that's in Chinese food, which will make you hungry in 2 hours. Instead, I'll just burn some belly fat. And that's why people who eat this way feel full. They feel full because they always have fat on their body to use as fuel. And by the way, the energy that you get from a small chain fatty acid, which is fat, is way much higher than what you would get from glucose coming from carbs. So there's many reasons why you feel full, but some of it is those things I just explained.
It is good to know that everything's okay there. She didn't ask me if I wanted a statin, so I can see why now. I was kind of expecting that.
Right. Eating a carnivore diet improves your cholesterol. Most people think it's not going to improve. And I would argue that if we did those particle sizes, it would look even more impressive.
Here is the next page of Lindy's labs.
We start at the top and you see electrolytes, and everybody knows that electrolytes are so important for our health, right? So all the electrolytes are working just fine. And that's important because when you're doing these dietary patterns, you really want to make sure that some people need electrolytes because the carbohydrates will bring them back into the body. And then when you eat low carb, keto or carnivore, those things get removed. So that's kind of number one. Number two, you see things like urea, creatinine, glomerular filtration rate. Those are all kidney tests, and those tests are all in the normal range. Dr. David Unwin did a study on his patients in the UK, and he found that, yes, a low-carb diet can improve your kidney function. Now, any logical person would know that. Why? Because the number one cause of dialysis is high blood sugars and diabetes, right? So So wouldn't it then be logical that if I get rid of the poison, too much sugar, then I may not have an issue with my kidneys. So if anybody's never heard this and you're concerned about your kidneys, you should look for Dr. David Unwin's study on the kidneys and low carb. But more importantly, if you have borderline kidney function, you can improve that. If you have stage 1, 2, and 3, and sometimes 4, you can reverse that. I'm saying that publicly because I've seen it happen with my patients over and over again. You may not hear that from your conventional doctors, including the specialists, the nephrologists. They may say, no, the kidneys are not going to get better. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. When you look further down, and I'm skipping a few things, but the ALT, AST, those types of things, those are really things that deal with the liver. And one of the things that happen going back to fat burning, one of the things that happens with a carnivore diet is that you burn fat first, right? So the question is, if I burn fat, where in the body is it going to burn? It's going to burn in the organs first because your body is very smart. Your body knows that a fatty liver is bad for you. So it's going to burn the fat in the liver first, whether you're doing low carb, keto, or carnivore. Get that fat out of your liver so that it can function optimally. Above that is the GGT. And I love the GGT because it's an enzyme found in the liver. And if it's abnormal, it can indicate obviously liver problems or even bile duct problems or damage. People who have alcoholic fatty liver, people who have pancreatitis and things like that, you may see an elevation, but it's also an inflammation marker. So if Lindy had an elevation of this, it would indicate potentially that there's inflammation, which clearly does not exist. And then things like your albumin has a lot to do with your nutritional status, your total protein, your globulin. So if those globulins and things or proteins are elevated, I think about things like multiple myeloma. In other words, there's conditions that we can identify with these tests, none of which she needs to worry about because all of these tests are wonderful. And of course, there was I think I'm assuming that's a fasting glucose at the bottom, and it was in a range that was considered normal. So these are more recent labs, but clearly the carnivore diet has not harmed her kidneys, has not harmed her liver, has not harmed her blood sugar, and her electrolytes are fine. So I think we're if this was a end of one study, we'd say a slam dunk so far.
Oh,
Beautiful. So
Wonderful.
I have a question. Dr.
Yes.
Hampton, so as we were looking at this, so say Lindy starting on her journey at the 800-pound point, we would expect that, the organs would be showing signs of distress under this at some point. And so I'm just kind of looking through all of this and seeing that what you're saying, the liver is just cleaned up and looking beautiful. And so we've got our bloods are nice and clean, and now our organs are looking just spectacular on this front as well.
It asked for some type of like relief and you gave it, but I think we need to say out loud, how many pounds are we talking about, Lindy? Please say it out loud so everybody's clear about that. So what was your before and after story, Lindy?
Well, I've lost around 500 pounds. I can't give you the exact figure because my scale said error, ERR, so I don't have an exact figure. But yeah, my scales go up to 750 pounds, and I was, for 6 years had ERR, so well over that.
It's that sounds like you made that up. I need to see evidence. I need some pictures. It's amazing. And it's just such it gives us a reason to wake up every day and to spend time talking about this because people wouldn't believe it was possible, but you're living proof.
right.
And we have so many other testimonials, but I just wanted to put that in front of everybody because when I heard that number, it really impressed me.
Vitamin
So
D.
vitamin D, oh my God.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, there were two things that were two of the highest risk factors for not doing well with COVID. Number one was obesity. Number two was vitamin D
Wow.
deficiency. And we think about vitamin D um, for our bones, and vitamin D does a really good job of helping our body to bring in the calcium so that we can use that to make our bones strong, so we don't have osteoporosis or rickets, which is when your bones kind of malform and look, bend and look a little odd. We always tell people when you supplement with vitamin D3, you also should take vitamin K2, and they tend to come together. Even if you're in Florida, you may want to consider that because it's just hard to get enough vitamin D through your skin, particularly in America. People of color need to be particularly careful because the darker the skin, it kind of blocks the sun a little bit. So it kind of protects your skin, but it also prevents you from getting the vitamin D. In your case, your vitamin D is in the normal range. There's different reference ranges. Some scales say 30 to 100, and yours is 50 to 250. But the bottom line is vitamin D is adequately being it's just doing really well under this dietary pattern. So it's just a lot of vitamins that you get a higher concentration of when you eat animal-based versus plant-based, which is why this is, I'm not surprised to see this at all.
I'm actually vitamin D deficient, and I've been on medication for like the supplements for vitamin D. I was on 5,000, but after receiving this test, she's dropped me down to 3,000. So what do you make of that? Because I hear some people are saying you should be having 10,000 or even more, that vitamin D is very important.
I think the higher dosages make a lot of sense. Again, the ranges in conventional medicine for the amount you can take is a little different than like in my functional medicine training. But yeah, I mean, the goal is you have a way to measure, right? So if you're taking 5 or 10,000 a day and your levels are tolerating that, then there shouldn't be a problem. If you just go get a basic vitamin D3 K2, it's going to be 5,000. So what's the chances that twice that's going to be harmful? It's not. So, but you have a way to measure. So, and everybody's different. So how bioavailable that is to your body compared to the next person may vary. So all you have to do is periodically check. But I would be very comfortable with 5 or 10,000 a day. I know most people are in the 1 to 2,000 range. I tend to be in the 5,000 range. But if you do a 10 and you're doing fine, as long as you have the K2, why do you need the K2? Let's go to church. You need the K2. It's like the usher at the church. Somebody needs to get me to my right seat. And so I want the calcium to find a seat inside my bones. I do not want the calcium to find a seat in my arteries and increase my risk for a heart attack. I do not want the calcium to find a seat in my knees. Used to be a tennis player. Maybe I got some arthritis in there. I don't know. But I want that calcium not to be in my arteries or my knees or my joints. Instead, in the K2, usher it to the bones. That's why we started doing vitamin K2. And again, a lot of these vitamins that I'm talking about they're better sourced from animals.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. So we're supplementing it with some things like vitamin D3 K2, but honestly, you'll do really well with a carnivore diet because most of the things you need are in the steak, is in the liver, is in the chicken and those types of things. So that's the better approach, and it's okay to supplement as needed. But it looks like you're doing much better than you have been doing.
Would you recommend I take K2 supplements as well?
100%. Again, this is novel. All doctors are not recommending that, but it should be. So particularly with those higher dosages. So, and if you're taking a higher dose that's maybe a prescription, you can always do the K2 as a separate prescription. It usually comes 100 or 200, and you can just supplement with that.
Right. They're just over the counter. There's no prescription for vitamin D here. So
oh yeah. You can just you'll find it. You'll be able to, if you look for it, you'll find it. Over the counter is a challenge now. In the US, we can go to Amazon and just order it, but You may end up in a health food store, or if you guys have access to like a Amazon type technology, you can do it that way.
As I've observed her dietary habits over time, she tends to include egg yolks a lot. She's been big with red meat and egg yolk as a dip, as a side, and lately she's used in a lot of egg shakes that she's making and things like this. So I feel like that yolk is a really great spot to enhance all this nutritionally as she's getting these supplements as well.
Absolutely. And to the extent we can get those types of approaches, our food as medicine, it's always better because it's more bioavailable because it's packaged differently.
Mhm.
Like we can try to come
Yeah.
up with a B12 vitamin or a vitamin D, but if you can find a way to make it accessible to your body through food, because it's kind of coming with its friends, and the friends help to process it and make it bioavailable. So always choose food first. But for certain things, like I don't eat a lot of fish, so I need to take omega-3. It's
Got
just, I mean, I don't want to eat a lot of fish. I want to eat a cow. It's just who I am. Shout out to all the cows.
Can someone overdose on vitamin D? And my second question for you is, have you heard that vitamin A is now, I don't know if it's the precursor for K2, which is a precursor for D. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, you can overdose on vitamin D. And it kind of goes back to um what I was saying earlier is you want to be able to measure. So if you measure and you're doing okay, you're probably okay, but you're not likely to overdose like quickly. You'll probably overdose over time, and you're measuring to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. So that's kind of like the first part of it. Um, and then you want to think about vitamin A and things like that. And this goes back to when I learned about vitamin A in particular, I learned that it also is a great source that comes from animal products like eggs and meat and dairy, cheese, and things like that. And plant sources, there are plant sources of vitamin A in spinach, lettuce, and things like that. But vitamin A has to be converted from um, a inactive form to an active form, and that conversion rate is like 12 to 1. It's really bad. So you may only get like a very small percentage of the vitamin A converted. Therefore, it's better to, if you have it in the form that's not needing to be converted. In other words, in plants is in the form of beta carotene, has to be converted. But in animal sources, it's already in active form. So it's really another example of why it's important to understand these things, because if I am eating a lot of foods, even if I were to stay with the spinach, so spinach has iron in it, but I'm only getting 2% if I'm plant-based. Spinach has vitamin A in it, but I'm only getting like maybe 10%. So if I'm plant-based, I'm thinking, oh, I'm good. I'm eating all the right foods based on what's on the label, but the label doesn't say anything about bioavailability, right?
Yeah.
And with vitamin A, my recollection is that it was less bioavailable for people of European descent. So now you got to factor that in. So it's probably better if a person has no ethical reasons not to eat animals, to eat an animal-based diet, if they want to not have to worry about these things. But if you are plant-based, you'll be thinking about a whole lot of supplements that you need to start thinking about. And honestly, in the community I serve on the south side of Chicago, they don't have the resources to think about all the supplements. Most people know about B12, but what about omega-3? What about the iron? What about the calcium, the zinc, the iodine? All of these things that you struggle to get enough of if you eat a plant-based diet. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Do I try to encourage my patient to eat some ground beef, the fatty type, not the lean type, which is affordable, or do I try to get them to figure out how to eat a plant-based diet with many things on the list that are not only not palatable to them, but at a cost they can't handle, and nor can they figure out how to supplement. And even if they could supplement, can they even afford the supplements? So it's just too much to do when all they had to eat was some ground beef. And it just seems weird for people who haven't heard this that ground beef is okay.
I know.
Ground beef has essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. There is no essential carbohydrate. So that if I was like Tom Hanks on an island somewhere, don't give me a beach ball, give me some ground beef.
Yeah.
And I can live and survive just fine with that. But again, these are things that we need to have people hear. And I think the more they hear it, the more they'll understand that this is the way to go. And we're just trying to also encourage eat real food. I know Vinny Tortorich has a documentary about processed keto foods. We don't even want you to eat that. I prefer you eat real food that's keto, not the plant-based Impossible burgers, not the keto-friendly snacks. We're saying eat real food, and ground beef is an example of real food. If you eat that way, you will heal and you will not have to suffer all of these chronic, so-called chronic medical conditions that so many of our friends and family suffer from. All right, so we kind of touched on the folate a little bit. I mean the B12 a little bit. So it's similar in that folate is also important. By the way, the labs are fine. So the first thing we want to say is that the labs they look okay. But another vitamin that's important for our cell growth, our red blood cell production. So if you don't have adequate red blood cell production because you don't have enough folate, you're gonna suffer. So in your case, again, I think because your diet is so rich and complete, you're not having any problems with folate. So we'll just go on to the next thing because that's pretty straightforward. So we got some thyroid. The thyroid is just so important. In fact, so many of my patients, they come to me and they say, I have a hormone problem, right?
Yes.
And when they say that, most of the times they're thinking their thyroid, right? And but do they really have a hormone problem? So I think you guys already know the answer to this question, but I wonder what hormone they really have a problem with. And the answer is not thyroid, it's insulin. So most people who come to us and say they have a hormone problem, they really have an insulin problem. But so the thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, is elevated. Now it's really confusing because most people say, well, I must have an overactive thyroid because that's elevated, but it actually works differently. So you have in your brain the hypothalamus, um, and it's trying to send a message uh, to your thyroid via your other glands that there's a problem. So if you're releasing a lot of TSH, right? That means that the thyroid's not here, it's not getting the message. So it's almost like insulin, you just keep making more TSH. That means your thyroid is not releasing thyroid. So you have a low thyroid problem when the TSH is high. And the opposite is true when it's low. When it's low, that means that you're probably releasing too much thyroid from your thyroid gland, which is in your neck. You also have these other things below it, free T4, free T3. Now, the free T4 and T3, they represent the free and unbound forms of the thyroid. And at the end of the day, your body secretes this T4 and then it's converted to T3, which is more of the form that's kind of active. So if you have a low thyroid problem because the TSH is high, hypothyroid, then you expect that free T3 and maybe even a free T4 to be a little lower, either one. And that's why it makes sense. Oh, this is hypothyroid. And that looks like what a person with hypothyroid would have. They don't have enough of that active form floating around, and the TSH number is elevated. So that's kind of what we would do with this information. But then the question begs, and I'm not sure if you have that present here, why is the thyroid condition here, right? And so I don't know if they did any thyroid antibodies, but that would be the next test I would want to order to see if we have a thyroid antibody issue.
It is very common to have adaptation symptoms like lower energy temporarily, headaches, and muscle cramping. These are sure signs that you are going through electrolyte imbalance. What you can do to quickly fix it is just salt all of your carnivore meals a little bit heavier, or just simply lean on a high quality electrolyte supplement. The brand that I always recommend is this one from Element, and specifically this blue colored box labeled raw unflavored. I like this one because there is no stevia or flavorings. It's simply just the 3 electrolytes that our body needs and measured out for you. Here's what the little packets look like. Very easy to travel with. You just rip one open, pour it in whatever you're drinking, drink it down, and you're good to go. You all can get a free sample pack with any purchase, and it does include the raw unflavored in here by going to the URL shown on the screen, drinklmnt.com/SBGAL, and I've also linked them down below.
I've had thyroid issues since my early 20s. It was first picked up then. They said nothing to do now, but my thyroid was on its way out. But then I didn't really go back to the doctors until I started carnivore. So for a long time, obviously, my thyroid wasn't working, and I've only just been on medications. So at the time of doing this test, she actually upped my medication to it was 150 micrograms. I'm now on 175 micrograms of levothyroxine, and I have to go back in the next month for another blood test to see if that dose is adequate. So I guess my question is, do you think there's a chance of me not having to have thyroid medication at any stage? Like, I'd love to know if I can cure my thyroid issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I just hate taking medication.
I know. I think it just depends. Like, let's just say you have an autoimmune thyroid condition. In that setting, you do get better. Your autoimmune state does get better with a carnivore diet. So number one, is it possible? Have I seen patients get off their medicine? Answer is yes. But typically they do it by having a dietary pattern that reduces inflammation, which what carnivore would do that. And that then gives the thyroid a little bit of a break. And then in some cases, that'll then lead to, I'm doing okay without the medication. It also depends on how long you've had it and how advanced that autoimmune impact has been. So, but then I think for you, if you notice that your numbers, you've been on carnivore and your numbers start to improve, what you want to see is those numbers improve while on the medicine.
Yep.
And if those numbers improve and start to get into the normal range, then you can talk to your doctor and say, you know what, would you be comfortable if we start to reduce the dose? It's very important that you do that gradually, because when you suddenly stop those medicines, you can certainly feel worse and not do very well. So it's very important that it's gradual, it's supervised. You just want to work with a clinician who's willing to walk with you. You say what your goals are, what your goals of care are. You get with a clinician who's going to align with that, and then you walk together, and they can monitor and help you along your journey. So yeah, you can definitely get off, but it is important to understand that everybody doesn't get off, right?
Yep.
And if that's your story, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay if I'll personalize this a little bit, because I've shared this story before. My wife was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was younger. It got to the point where the seizures were every couple of weeks. She was fortunate to have a surgery, and she was hoping that after the surgery it would be cured. It actually did cure her, but we want to keep you on medicine. We're just going to get down to one medicine. And I was like, but you know what? What's more important is that she doesn't have seizures anymore. It's been probably 10 years. So imagine having them every month, every other week or so, and it's zero. So I think as you got to choose your poison in life, right? And sometimes carnivore cures you, and sometimes it just makes everything easier, and it's less of this and less of that. But the things that you've gained are so off the charts. But I believe that you're so committed and what you've done. Your body's probably in shock. I mean, I'm still like amazed at the number. I just looked at it on the paper. You lost so much weight. Your body's like, what's going on here? And what's going to happen is it's gonna settle down, and then your body will tell you if this is a possibility. It depends on how much damage was caused in the first place. But if you hadn't done the autoimmune test, and you may have done it already, make sure they've done that so we can distinguish. Because if it's autoimmune, I've seen more success with Hashimoto's than I've seen with other types of causes of thyroid. So that would give me hope that there's a better chance.
Okay, so I might ask the doctor to include that next time when I do my
Yes.
next panel. Lovely.
Yes.
Also, high fat is good for thyroid. I've heard a few people say, and also sardines. I still have the concerns with high fat because I still have a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah.
And I still have those old noises in my head saying, you eat fat, you put on fat. But I know that's not true, but it's what are your thoughts?
Be comfortable with how your brain works, right? And you've been told over and over again that saturated fat is harmful. But we already know that the Journal of the College of Cardiology had looked at all the studies and found that it's not harmful. We also know from that research that the saturated fat reduces your risk for a stroke. So not only does it not cause cardiovascular disease, it reduces your risk for a stroke, which doesn't make any sense until you understand what is the brain made of? Fat.
Yeah. Fat.
2/3. You got a fat head, essentially is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that fat head needs to be fed the fuel that got it to where it's at. Our babies, when they're little, they're just eating fat. The myelin that surrounds the nerves in your nervous system is filled with cholesterol and fat. So don't be surprised if the mood of a carnivore is higher than the mood of a vegan, because they've eliminated the fat and now all of a sudden their brain's not working as well. So for you, it's okay to have the fears from the past because you're human. You just have to remind yourself via conversations like this. Maybe you need to, print that study done by the American Journal of the College of Cardiology, and it'll reassure you from a source that should be reliable that we're okay. Remember, all of those studies from the past were observational survey studies or just data mining. They weren't randomized controlled trial that suggested you should be fearing fat. Fat is your friend. And it's the only thing, if you think about it, doesn't spike insulin. If you think about it, like if you look at those graphs, it barely budges. And insulin is the fat storage hormone. You've eliminated those insulin spikes, which is one of the reasons why you've lost 500 pounds. So there can't be any harm that's substantial in this conversation to then say to you, let's go back to the diet that made me 800 pounds. There is no way that a rational person would ever imagine that that's the right statement. But guess what? There's a lot of doctors who are so indoctrinated into their beliefs that they can't see the forest for the trees. And they are still telling you things that's creating fear. I would prefer they at least take the time to do their own individual research instead of listening to the mainstream. And if they did that, they would discover at the minimum that, oh my God, low carb keto and carnivore is healing people I'm curious why that's true. And then if they did that research, it would blow their mind. And at the minimum, they would then see a patient like you and say, guess what? I still don't know if I trust this stuff. I'm having the same fears you're having, but I can't deny the science that's in front of me. Therefore, I'm going to walk with you and support you as long as your labs are okay, as long as everything's okay, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your weight's still stable. And that's the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where the doctors are willing to walk with you and be critical of what they learned in the past. And I remember when I have a presentation for the it's called Advocates Dole Diabetes Symposium this week coming up. And one of the slides is a gentleman who is the father of epidemiology. And he said something you've heard already. He said that 50% of what I learned in medical school will be obsolete in 5 years.
Mm.
So that then means I need to keep learning. So if my clinicians out there are not continuing to learn, they're going to stay in the mindset of 5 years ago, which will not serve their patients. And that's all I'm asking is to be a critical, skeptical person who's willing to question their beliefs. Myself, Bella, and others who are plant-based would have never switched to a different dietary pattern if it were not for us being critical and skeptical of what we already knew.
Exactly.
So that's all I ask the doctors to do, and I ask you guys to do the same. The hemoglobin, hematocrit, basically the way we define if you're anemic, those tests appear to be in a normal range. Obviously, we don't want to be anemic. The MCV, MCH, those types of things are measuring the size of the cells. So if you were anemic and I was trying to figure out why you were anemic, it would help me to distinguish. In other words, microcytic, let's just say the cells are small. Microcytic means that you have a higher risk that it came from iron deficiency, chronic disease, thalassemia. And then you have macrocytic, which has other causes. So since it's normal, it doesn't matter. The platelets, obviously, those are the things that keep, those sticky things that keep us from bleeding. Those are fine. And then you have all of these other types of cells, neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils. We don't have to go into detail with those, but those types of cells are really important for the immune system. The neutrophils are the ones that we think about the most. These are all types of white cells, and the neutrophils are like the leader of the pack. So whenever you're having issues around infection, inflammation, the neutrophils, they show up at the party first and say, okay, we got to get this thing under control. And then you have other things on there like lymphocytes. You have B cells and T cells and natural killer cells, and all of these cells are more aligned with attacking viruses and cancer cells, where the neutrophils are more thinking about bacteria and fungus and things like that. And then we see the eosinophils. They also fight infection. Monocytes, they also attack foreign cells and fight infection. I kind of think of eosinophils also when I think about allergies. So people who have allergies, they tend to have a higher number of those as well. So again, it doesn't matter because Lindy is killing it.
Heck yeah.
Not like a natural, kind of like a natural killer cell. Killing it. And she's keeping her body. And this is what's cool, guys. You lose weight. So if I get COVID, guess what? COVID probably can't do what it would have done to me years ago when I was heavier, right? So my body is like a fortress of that doesn't mean I can't get sick. It just means that, and this is what happens, guys, when you eat this way, and this is what's happened to me. Even if I get sick, it just comes and goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I'm getting sick and then it goes away. Sometimes I get sick. What used to be a week, it's like 2 days.
Same.
So, oh my God. And people just don't believe it. And now I can continue to do the things that we do to take care of our families, do this work we're doing right now. and you feel like doing it because you're not tired, you have energy, and you're just a different person. I could only imagine how you feel now compared to how you felt then. And it's probably a list of things that you can do now that you couldn't do.
Yeah,
Oh.
no comparison at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should share with Dr. Hampton the major gift that you gifted yourself after losing weight. What was it?
Yeah, I bought myself a new car.
Ah,
Yes, I now fit behind the wheel and I don't need to push the seat all the way back. And yeah, just being able to drive again and have some freedom to actually leave my house. It's fantastic. So yeah.
we had a guest on the low carb cruise who did a testimonial. He was a large gentleman who lost about 250 pounds. The first thing he did when he got on the cruise ship is that he got into the shower.
Oh,
That was the
Yeah.
first time he
wow.
could get into the shower. Just and people who don't have your story, they can't imagine not being able to get into the shower.
Really?
So I appreciate your testimony because it's like, whew. So this is the A1C. Again, glycosylated hemoglobin. It appears to be in the normal range. I think the bottom one is the estimated average glucose. So we don't use that too much here in the United States, but I think that's just telling you what the average blood sugar is. And they did a little bit of a conversion. So I think that's what that EAG is. But at the end of the day, all of these labs are in the normal range. And if anything, if you look at the reference range, it's on the low end of the normal range, which is a good thing. So you are in a completely different place. Again, if you were not in a good place, that number would be higher. And this is absolutely a predictor of heart disease, stroke, and things like that as well. So the fact that that number is looking so good is just a further confirmation. Again, we can look at a lot of different labs. In your case, everything looks great. But even if one thing was off, with so many things looking good, you can't help but to celebrate this dietary pattern that it's been a victory for you.
Thank you.
Yes. Good job, Lindy.
And this is a urine test. We do this all the times. We look for protein in the urine, and albumin is protein. And we want that number to be in a normal range. So in the United States, we want it to be less than 30. They don't have the actual reference range, but they have the ratio, which is also even more, it's very sensitive compared to the albumin. At the end of the day, it's in a normal range. Why does it matter? Because if you're losing muscle in your urine, then that means that your kidneys are weak. You don't want to lose muscle ever, right? So this test is something that everybody with diabetes gets a couple of times a year at least. And if this is what we call the canary in the coal mine. So in Chicago, we have a Museum of Science and Industry, and it has a coal mine. You literally go down, and it's a coal mine, and there's a canary that will make noise whenever the oxygen level goes down. So it's a warning of what's to come. So why do we do this test? Because it's way better than the test that we do in the blood to predict what's coming. So when this test is elevated, it tells us, it's a warning, just like that canary, that your kidneys are starting to fail. I have good news. And by the way, we do the creatinine and BUN and the serum in the blood. The good news is if you get rid of the poison, as I suggested earlier, if you get rid of the sugar that's causing the kidneys to be weak, then guess what? You can reverse this. So if that number goes up to 1,000, or I've seen it as high as 3,000, and go back to normal simply by doing a keto diet in this particular case. So you get rid of the poison, your body will heal in most cases. And that's why it's never too late to improve your kidney function. And it's important that we measure this so that we can warn people what's coming. They get rid of the poison, which is excessive carbs. and the kidneys recover in many cases. So, and even if it didn't recover, imagine a person who ends up on dialysis, right? Would you really want to put a new kidney, if they are blessed to get a transplant, in a body that's going to destroy it as well? How about if we fix that so that the next kidney in those cases also have an opportunity to have a healthy new kidney and do well moving forward? So there's no reason not to do this other than to be too skeptical to try it.
I truly appreciate you helping me out to understand my levels, and I'm thrilled. It sounds like I'm a total badass on carnivore.
Did you know you were
So,
such a superstar?
no, I'm so happy. Yeah, yeah. My doctor kind of shrugged it off and still offering me Ozempic, and I'm like, seriously, you have done so
Oh.
well. Why? You know, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, and I feel amazing. So, thank you so much for giving me some time and just helping me go through those and helping me understand. So,
Yeah.
it's been lovely.
And you are a hero. I have one of my heroes on my shirt, Dr. Kim Berry's shirt, right?
Yes.
But I'll be honest, as much as we love him, it's those heroes that we have in front of us that mean the most. And I honestly need to let you hear that when I go to clinic and I hear stories like this, that's my fuel. That's what makes me wake up every day. Shout out to my wife, of course, my family, put them first. But that's what it is. And I really thank you for being willing to put your story in front of people, because many people, they won't even share stories like you just shared. I mean, I had another patient said she just couldn't, like, she had to put a towel on the steering wheel so that she, it was uncomfortable. So she had to put a towel there so it wouldn't uh
Yeah.
irritate her. It's
Oh,
just little things like that that people could only never imagine. So they need to hear your story to know it's possible. And it really inspires all of us, not just the people who are on this journey. The people who are teaching need to hear this as well.
For people who are skeptical about this carnivore lifestyle, I just want you to share a few words of encouragement to those who are watching right now, who maybe are in your shoes where you first started and would like to be where you are today. What would you
What
like to say to them?
Oh, just yeah, trust the process. This has given me a second chance at life. I thought that my life was over. I felt like a failure as a person. I felt like a failure to my family. I had basically written myself off, and yeah, I'm a failed lap band surgery candidate as well. I had lap band when I was in my around 25, so 25 years. Still managed to get up to 800 pounds. Failed every diet. Was a burden on my family. Now I'm taking my girls out doing things and just being a mum and being a wife, and um, never thought I'd see this day. I flew to Texas to meet all you wonderful people.
yes.
In me fit in an aeroplane, never ever thought I could do that. So look, I hate it when people say, well, if I can do it, anyone can do it. But
Mm.
800 pounds to get to that stage is pretty disgusting and desperate, and it's awful, but you can change your life. You can change your life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So reach out. Community was a big part of my success. Without community, I probably would have struggled. I know I would have struggled. Community, reaching out and having these wonderful people around me, supporting me, motivating me. The whole community is amazing. So do reach out, because some people like me just can't do it alone.
Big shout out, Dr. Hampton. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and educate us and everyone who is watching. I'd love for you to wrap up this video. Any final words of encouragement as a doctor who gets it, and how can we find and support you?
Absolutely. Well, again, Lindy, you have blessed me today just with the opportunity just to walk through these labs with you. I'm very proud of you. I'm very happy about the future. I can't imagine all the things you'll do, all the things you'll experience, and guess what? Your family will get a chance to experience that with you. So I'm very excited about that. I remember when I read the book by Bronnie Ware with the the top 5 regrets of those who are at the end of their lives. And the number one regret was I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me, not the life that the doctors expected of me, or my family, or my friends, or my coworkers. I lived a life that was true to me. So you doing that will allow others to do the same. And you don't even know the impact of your story on people. You will meet people 5, 10 years from now who will say to you, it was because of your story that changed my life. So that's why we're so grateful and so happy that we're sharing stories just like this. So Limitless Lindy will be a channel I'll be subscribing to after this conversation. And I may even ask you to join me on the Protecting Your Nest podcast on my YouTube channel. So listen, we are out here like foot soldiers spreading this message, and we can't do it alone. So that's why we love what you're doing. I feel privileged to be part of the Steak and Butter gang. The moment I joined, it's been a blessing. And I just can't wait to do more and more. So I really appreciate all you guys. And let's just keep doing this great work, the work that we were born to do. Yeah. And thank you.
You can all support Lindy on all of her socials. She has an amazing YouTube channel, which I have linked down below. And if you're looking for more support, camaraderie, coaching, and help along your carnivore journeys, feel free to join our next Carnivore Challenge in the Steak and Butter Gang. We have guest speakers and carnivore doctors visiting every single week to answer member questions and to speak on topics that are requested, including Dr. Tony Hampton himself. For more details, just go to sbgmeetup.com or check out the links down below in the description box. And finally, before I wrap up, I just wanted to share something that I have been incorporating every single day in my daily routine, and that is wearing blue light blocking glasses. These ones that I'm showing right now are from Bon Charge, and specifically the red and yellow ones in the design called Magnum. I love the way it sits on my face and how well it protects my eyes from all of the blue light screens that I have to use, especially when I'm doing nighttime meetings, Zoom calls, interviews. I will try my best to wear these on to protect my eyes from getting dry and irritated. It also helps me be able to fall asleep really quickly and stay asleep. Steak and Butter Guy and I have also been loving their infrared light sauna blanket. This is something that you can just plug in, choose whatever setting that you want, and let it completely wrap around you. It's warm, it's comfortable, you can lie down and enjoy the benefits of infrared light therapy. It helps with muscle soreness, recovery after workouts, and just overall relaxation and calmness. If you want to check out any of Bon Charge's biohacking tools or blue light blocking classes, I'll make sure to link them down below and use code SBGAL for 15% off your purchase. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one. SBG out.